What's up, Hockey Talk Show fans? It's your old pal Lan, and I'm here in the Hockey Talk Show studio, which is actually currently undergoing some renovations right now. But I wanted to give you a quick hit here to wrap up the All Star weekend and talk about some of the other things that is going on in the league right now. Obviously, the big story here is Jaromir Jagr is done. Jagr Zagana, as they would say in Boston. Kind of sad for me. I think this is definitely not the way a legend of his stature should go out. I think I admire him for going at it so hard for so long. But at the same, that's what she said. But at the same time, I also feel like I respect the Gretzky's and those sort of guys who knew the right time to go out. I was always sad about the way Shane Doan ended his career with Phoenix or Arizona now. And just, overall, like, this is not how you want your, legends of the game to have to leave. It's one thing when a player's with a team for his entire career and then they go to like another team for a year or two, to eventually peter out. We talked about Lindros a lot lately. We kind of saw that with Lindros in Dallas. But we're kind of used to that sort of thing happening now. It's another thing when you can't complete your final season, and that's the case that we have here with Jaromir Jagr. I think he played 21 or 22 games with Calgary this season, and a lot of injuries and a lot of other issues that prevented him. I honestly think that, and again, this is a lot of assumption on my part, but just from what I've read and from what I've seen, I think a lot of the players had a difficult time with him. I think Yarmir draws a lot of attention, and I think that he has a lot of off ice demands as far as bringing his boys around with him. I hear he has a very big posse. I hear he has a lot of things that he demands in the locker room and all sorts of stuff. So I think when you have a player of his ilk, hockey players are very respectable. They want to be, respectful, but at the same time, when you're not pulling your weight, that could also cause a whole bunch of issues. And as we're seeing here with Calgary rather, you know, they're doing just fine without him. That's the weird thing. Like, you get to a point where you're like, okay, it's great to have a legend in the locker room, and it's great to sell some jerseys, and it's great to have people excited to see him, and great to have him help the team win. But if he's not helping the team win and they're winning without him, then why are you gonna put up with all the other stuff that it comes with? Again, that I think injuries. I think a lot of things goes into this whole Yager experiment in Calgary not exactly working the way certainly he and the team wanted. I don't think Calgary wanted to go down this route. I don't think that Yarmir wanted to go down this route, but I do think that they were both open to the opportunity. Um, Judging by this mutual agreement that was agreed upon that if it wasn't working for either party, they would terminate the contract. Now, what I find interesting is they didn't terminate the contract. He's been loaned to Kladno, I hope I'm saying that right, which is actually a team that he owns. He's a majority owner of in the Czech Republic. From what I understand, he is going to make a serious run because as it works in that league, the better you play, the better positioning you get into. It'd be like, if the AHL team won the championship, they get to play in the NHL next season. You know, that's kind of how it works in some of the leagues they have over in Europe. So this league in the Czech Republic that Kladno is a part of is sort of that thing. So he wants to raise his team into the top tier, which I can totally get, which would explain why he doesn't go back to the KHL or any of the other leagues, that he chooses to go back to the Czech Republic and the team that he owns subsequently. But he's being loaned there by the Calgary Flames, which I find is interesting. And I didn't see a lot of chatter on this today in the Twitterverse, so I don't know how accurate it is. But it's my understanding that if he's not on unconditional waivers and he passes through waivers and he's loaned to Clodno, he's still property of Calgary, which to me is interesting because, all right, he passed through waivers, so teams had a chance to claim him and they didn't. But let's say down the line, Taylor Hall goes down with a more serious injury. Taylor, by the way, should be back for the start of the second half of the season on Tuesday. It's amazing these illnesses that occur over All Star Weekend that are miraculously healed by the first game back from the break. But let's say the Devils lose Taylor Hall, or I think that's a prime example. Let's say the Devils lose Taylor Hall. Let's say the Devils lose Taylor Hall and Brian Boyle, or whatever they do, Gibbons, or they take a big hit. Do they now want to, fill that gap by bringing in Jaromir Jagr? I wonder. And I'm surprised I didn't hear any of that chatter today, but I'm certain that before the and this might be a little homework for you guys. Before we hit the NHL trade, before the trade deadline is over on February 26th, before we hit noon or 3 o'clock or whatever the deadline time is, somebody will be bringing that up in the media. I guarantee you. Somebody will be floating the idea of bringing back a Jaromir Jagr into the fold. Because although he doesn't really make sense for many teams right now, if a team like the Devils or the Flyers or whomever loses a big piece, and I think the Devils are a prime example because they don't have many big pieces. Jaromir Jagr can be your little band-aid. That certainly might be something that they're looking into, or they would kick the tires on. Again, Jaromir is not going to save a franchise, but he'd be a nice band-aid for some teams if it came down to that. If you think about the Devils falling completely out of the playoff picture versus grabbing Jaromir Jagr and maybe being able to scoop up a wild card spot, I'm sure they'd kick the tires on Jaromir Jagr. So that I found pretty interesting. That all this talk about will terminate the contract, it's actually become a discussion of, well, we're going to loan him to Cloud now, and that's kind of where they are. They said their goodbyes. I don't think we'll see Jaromir Jagr. I know we won't see Jaromir Jagr in a Calgary Flames uniform again. You could lose Johnny Gaudreau and, for everybody, you could lose everybody on that team. He's not coming back there. It's not going to happen. But another team taking a chance on him, we'll see. The mood in the league was that he wasn't coming back once he hit waivers, that no other team was going to claim him. But there was this outside 10% chance of maybe somebody will. Maybe somebody will want to bring him in. I'm surprised, like an Arizona or an Edmonton, somebody who really cares didn't take a shot at him. I'm also kind of surprised that Jagr didn't make more of a plea or work a little harder to stay in the league. So he's 34 games shy, I think, of having the most games played in the history of the National Hockey League. I believe he's not that far behind Gordie Howe. 34 games back of Gordie Howe for the most games played all time. A mark that would be miraculous for him to hit this season if he'd have to play basically every game, which he wasn't doing right now. But he's going to go to the Czech League and he's going to play a whole bunch of games, so I guess it was possible. But I guess my point is I'm surprised he didn't campaign or, personally reach out to some friends, coaches, other players, etc., on some of these teams and say, look, come on, give me a shot. Let me get in there. I could be a third line player. I could be on the second power play unit. I could contribute. I feel great, blah, 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 so on and so forth. So I don't know, like, to me, the fierce, the competitor side of Jagr, I think if his heart was really in it, he would have pushed and he probably could have found another home somewhere. But he's accepted sort of this fate, and I do find it interesting that this is the way that he goes off into the sunset. I don't know if he comes back after this season. I mean, I guess anything is possible, but if you're not going to go out there and pull a Jagr in at this point to help you, like I said, or a Band-Aid situation, there's no real point in bringing him back again in the fold. Thanks for tuning in to this little. We got more. I got a couple more topics I want to hit before I let you guys go. I want to make sure we're getting something up there for the podcast. I know people have been reaching out to me like, "Where's the show? What's going on with the show?" We got just a lot of things going on right now, and it's great to get in here and talk hockey for 10 minutes, and then check you guys in the comments. I'll be in the comments, so please comment on Jagr and what you think about that whole situation. Do you think he would help another team? Do you think he would come back in? It's good to do that. But we're doing a lot of stuff right now. We're actually working on the studio a little bit. Got a new light here for you guys watching. If you're not on the podcast, um, with light covers and things. We're gonna make some minor tweaks to the studio, just some sound stuff and some lighting stuff that you probably wouldn't even really notice if I didn't say anything. But so we're working on that right now, and we're just a lot of stuff with the radio gig and some of the other gigs that I have. Um, so that's why no live show. And then also it is kind of a quiet time, All Star game. Nobody really, there's not really a lot to do. So we'll be back soon. I don't want to say for tomorrow's episode it's possible. It's not impossible. Um, Definitely this week we'll be doing some live shows. It's not like we're leaving for like months here. It just a little couple of little tweaks and things, and just need to focus some time on some other stuff. So thanks for being patient with that. Speaking of the All Star game, and by the way, I was so glad in the last quick hit that we did that everybody was so in agreement that Brad Marchand is a dirty player and didn't deserve to go. That was the general consensus of everybody. And I was so happy to see that, because I honestly thought it was disgusting that he went. It really bothered me, and more so than I thought it would. I just hated the fact that he was there and he was smiling and having a good time, while poor Marcus Johansson is, seeing doctors and sitting in dark rooms and dealing with a concussion. I didn't think that was right, and I thought the league was wrong for allowing him to do it. I think he should have been strongly encouraged not to go. And I know what everybody's going to say. Smart people at least will say, well, look, he's in a union. The union would have came to his benefit, and they would have. But I mean, I think it would have been something that even the union should, like, just some morality a little bit. Just a little bit of morality. Just be moral. Just recognize the situation, like Ovechkin did, and pull yourself out of the game. But I lost a lot of respect for Brad Marchand over the course of this time. One, for the injury, the fact that it was his sixth suspension, and the fact that he went to the All Star game and pretended like everything was fine, that he deserved to be there. I don't think he did. I really, really don't think he did. And it's a little surprising for me too, because I'm not one of these guys that wants public apologies and gets offended every 5 minutes. I hate that crap. I really do. But this one, there was just something about this one I just didn't like. I don't think I'm out of the realm of reason here. Sixth suspension. The guy is injured, and you're gonna go over there and try and compete for $1 million, 25 grand in the skills competition, and smile and get all the accolades and think you deserve it. No, you screwed up. You had made a big mistake, and you should feel some consequence for that outside of just a 5 game suspension. So, I don't know. If I'm in the league, I'm saying, look, we'll give you 5 games in the All Star break if you don't go. If you do go, we'll give you 10. Now, I know they probably really couldn't do that. Again, the union would step in, but it's the world we live in. But still, even more so than him being forced, I would have preferred it if he'd have just pulled himself out, right? Even if I heard he was forced not to go, I would have felt better about it. But if he would have said, look, I feel bad, I messed up, I got, blah, 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 this, that, I don't think I should go, I don't think it would be right, he's injured, uh, you know, I'm going to sit out. If Marcus Johansson gets up and whatever, and he's fine, I maybe would feel different about it. But I hate that one guy is at home in a dark room suffering somewhere, while the other one is out smiling, pretending like, he's one of the league's best. I lost a lot of respect for Brad Marchand over the weekend. But I bring it up because did you notice that he was booed all weekend long? That made me so happy. So not only did I get you guys like totally agreeing with that whole scenario, but Brad Marchand was booed all weekend long. He was booed in the skills competition. He was booed when he was introduced at the beginning of the All-Star game, and he was booed again the first couple of times that he touched the puck. Now, he was part of a goal. I don't know if he scored or if he was part of a goal, and the crowd went nuts. But again, he's on the hometown team with Boston being in the same division as Tampa. So obviously the Tampa fans were going to be excited. Obviously, they weren't rooting hardcore against him. But the fact that everybody in that arena knew what time it was and knew to boo him made me super happy. I was super happy to see the fans over in Tampa Bay step up a bit and shout out some boos and make it be known that this guy, is not so slick and he's not one of the fan favorites and deserved to get booed. He deserved to get booed. It was a dirty play from a dirty player, and he deserved to be booed. I honestly thought, and nothing worth, shouting anybody out or anything like that, but I also honestly thought that the commentators didn't do enough. They just kind of like smiled and glanced over it. And I thought, if I feel this way, I'm sure others do. And it would have been nice if a commentator stepped out of the line and said, look, I don't think he deserves to be there. I find it hard to believe with a 5-man crew on NBC and, countless other representatives from ESPN and TSN and Sportsnet. I find it hard to believe that every single one of them was fine with Brad Marchand being in the lineup. To play both sides of it, I didn't exactly get everybody's comments or see everybody's thoughts on Twitter or follow everything, but I watched a bit of the NHL Network and I watched all the coverage on NBC Sportsnet and on NBC, and I didn't really hear they and made mention of it, but I didn't really hear anybody stepping out and saying I don't think he deserves to be here. In fact, at one point he got tripped and there was a penalty call and he was pretending like he was hurt and he was like checking his mouth for blood like this to go into the refs like in an effort to get 4 minutes instead of 2, and he was laughing, and I don't know. I thought it was in poor taste, man. I really, really just thought it was in poor, poor taste. This is really bad. Final thought here, and I want to get big into the Rangers and the Islanders, and really to a certain extent Carolina, Pittsburgh, and Philly on the next show, because there's a lot of meat on that bone, a lot to talk about, specifically with the Islanders and the Rangers. But for the Islanders' sake, and this is not what I'm talking about, this is just an aside. Islanders, it was announced today by Governor of New York, Andrew Cuomo, that the Islanders are going to play 12 regular season games at the Coliseum for the next 3 years. So this decision that had to be made about the Islanders opting out and doing all this stuff and them needing to find a place, they didn't really let the Barclays Center out of their deal altogether, because Barclays is paying somewhere, the rumors are around $50 million a year just to have the Islanders there, and then it was up to the Barclays Center to sell tickets and ads and make up that revenue. And obviously it's not really working out for the Barclays Center, as it's not really working out for the Islander fans, because Isles fans don't want to drive to Brooklyn or take a subway to Brooklyn. So they've come to this sort of pygmy arrangement, and I don't know if it's really going to work all that much. I think I would have much rather seen half the season or a full season over there at the Coliseum. I know what you're saying, 12 games is only 8 games away, really, if we're 9 games away from a half a season. It just seems weird to me. It seems very scattered and weird, and I don't know. It's just a little bizarre. The weird thing is, for the Islanders, they really don't play a lot of Friday, Saturday, Sunday games at the Barclays Center. For what reasons, I don't know. But they just don't. I know, because I try and go to games, during the weekend when it's easier for me to make it. I host a radio show in the morning. Not easy for me to get up the next day, especially taking a train an hour and a half to get to Brooklyn. But they don't do a lot of that. I would guess that a lot of these games are going to be Tuesday, Thursday nights during the week, Monday nights, but we'll have to wait and see what the schedule makers do. Brian Compton is a great guy who writes for the NHL.com and follows the Islanders a lot. Said that playoff games haven't been determined yet. So this does confirm one thing, though, that they think they can have Belmont up and running in 3 years, which I think is, believe it or not, hopeful. Definitely not a conservative, assessment whatsoever. I mean, do I think you could build an arena in 3 years in St. Louis or Arizona or Seattle? I sure do. You're talking about New York. Everything takes double or triple the time, in New York. So I think that 3 seasons is a little, eager. And by the way, it's also not out of the realm of possibility that they can move into the building in mid-season. I think that's been done before. You don't necessarily have to wait to the start of the season. You could move into a building in the middle of the year. So we'll see what happens with the Islanders with that. But this is definitely a conclusion. I knew they would move the games to the Coliseum eventually. I find 12 games a year interesting. I feel like it's really kind of all or nothing. But from what I understand, there was a lot of complaints, especially from the league, that the building is just really not fit for some of the things that they need. National television space, to put cameras and commentators and things that you wouldn't necessarily think of. I know it's a crummy building. That's why they're not going back there to begin with. But there are some other issues that are not fan attendance issues. Like I said, TV and all that other stuff that is a little bit of an issue there. So we'll see what happens. But 12 games for now over the next 3 seasons. There's no, to me, it's just this is an agreement. I think if it goes up, I wouldn't be surprised. I don't foresee it going down, but I wouldn't be surprised if it does go up a little bit. And by the way, these are going to be 12 games that are going to be special and they're going to be sold out. Even if they are on a Tuesday night, if this team is winning, they're going to be sold out. If this team is winning would be the key. And the key for John Tavares, we're going to delve deep. I have analyzed John Tavares. And on the next show, we're going to delve deep. Whether it's live or not, I want to try and do it live. But we're going to delve deep into John Tavares and his comments over All-Star Game weekend. Because they were pretty interesting. I think the Islanders are still on the clock for him. It's not a sure sign, which to me frustrates me endlessly because the Islanders better go out there and make some damn moves. Honestly, I'm never one who feels like make a trade for trade's sake, but in this particular case, when you have a player just waiting for you to see if you can do everything you can do to win, you may have to make a trade for trade's sake. You just might. Forget the future. The future is now. The Islanders are almost we're in a no tomorrow scenario because if you lose John Tavares, you really don't have it tomorrow. And you could talk to me till you're blue in the face about Matthew Barzal. That kid is spectacular and I love him, but his magic comes from the umbrella of protection that 91 gives him. He's able to roam free on that ice because 91 and 27 and 12 are taking the other team's top checking line and defensive pairing. So, to think that we're going to put the franchise on another rookie's shoulders or a second year player's shoulders next season without John Tavares is insanity. I don't even want to hear that talk. But even more so than the Islanders in their particular situation, it's interesting what's going on with the New York Rangers. This idea of them wanting to blow up their team whether they're in the hunt or not, which is something that I have been saying about this franchise from the start of the season, which is I wouldn't deny that they wouldn't be in the hunt because Lundqvist and garbage, you're gonna be in the hunt. What I'm saying is, so at the beginning of the season, that's what I felt like. They could be in the hunt, so that's why I could never make a definitive thing. But I said all along, if they're not in it, they should trade Lundqvist and burn this whole thing down. Now this talk is starting to come up with, they're actually thinking about burning this all down. And I think that finally I'm vindicated a little bit because this should be looked into. They're an okay team and they could get in, but you're never going to get out of that East. You're not going to get past Tampa Bay. You're not going to get past Washington with the team that they have this season. 2 seasons ago, different story. Different story. Derek Stepan, Marty St. Louis, all these guys. It was a different team 3-4 years ago. It's not anymore. So I want to really delve into this. The Rangers are contemplating blowing things up because I want to analyze where it's coming from, how legitimate is this, and both tunnels, Tunnel A, Tunnel B, if they keep it and if they decide to blow it up, and what does that mean for the franchise? I think that's particularly interesting because as you look at the Metro, something's got to give somewhere. Some team has got to catch fire and take over. Some team has got to crumble and fall out of favor. Some team has got to make some deals and bring in some players. And some team has got to get rid of realize that they're not going to take off or crumble and figure out where they're going to be at for the rest of their time. By the way, Carolina for me is not that far away from this. They're in a little bit better shape with Skinner and Stahl and Aho. Um, but they're another team where they don't really have that much of an identity. And they need a little couple of extra pushes and umphs and pieces to get that thing running right. I don't think they're guaranteed in, and I don't even know if they're guaranteed to be in this old dogfight. But as we go through this next 4 weeks, which is going to be critical for trade rumors, um, some big hardcore decisions have to be made. And you have to figure it out. You have to figure out, like a jockey in a horse race, if the horse you're on is going to make that last quarter mile or not. Because there's no sense in whipping the life out of him if you don't think he's going to be there at the end when you ask for it. So I think it's interesting now that these stories are starting to surface because it kind of goes to my theory in the beginning, which is see where you are and then make a decision because this is a critical point to me in the Rangers franchise. You went to a Cup final. You've been making little tweaks here and there. You just switched general managers. It's time maybe to give this team entirely over to Jeff Gordon and let him build it up from scratch because right now he's been he liked Zibanejad, so he wanted to go out and get him. So he's been making these little tweaks and little things here and there. And Grabner's obviously a Band-Aid signing. It was good signing. He turned out to be great, but it was a Band-Aid. I want to see what this team looks like when Jeff Gordon sits down and says, okay, I'm going to go and liquidate everything, grab my picks, start drafting right, start signing the guys I want to sign. Obviously, Shattenkirk, he got the discount. He got him here. He's here. You know what I'm saying? Like, let's see what Jeff Gordon can build. Let's give him the chance and see. Because right now you're playing with Band-Aids from previous administrations, And in the case of Nash, a lot of previous coaches. So we'll see. How many coaches has Nash had? He was there before Tortorella, was he not? Maybe not. I could be wrong about that. Let me know in the comments below. And again, this is just scratching the surface. We have a lot to delve into with Tavares' comments and the Rangers and this idea of blowing it up because now is the time to evaluate it. So I'd really love to get in deep on that on the next episode. But on the surface, let me know what you think of that. Like and subscribe if you're watching on YouTube or Facebook. And if you're on the stream with Spotify, iTunes, Stitcher, or the TuneIn Radio app, remember to just hit that thumbs up wherever you're listening from, or share it on your Twitter, share it on your Tumblr, share it on your Facebook page, and continue to spread the word. We need to build up, a little bit more. The other kind of cool thing about doing these pre-taped shows is the way that YouTube and the Facebook algorithms are working. These shows are actually being seen by more people. The last, taped show I did, non-live show I did, was seen quite a bit, maybe a smidge more than a live show. I don't think they're as fun as the live show, but again, we can still go back and forth in the comments. That's another thing. Again, we're tweaking. We're always thinking about things here at the Hockey Talk Show, and there's no reason to keep that stuff from you guys. I'll keep you abreast of the whole situation and what we're thinking, but we did notice a little bit of uptick in this in a pre-recorded show, a quick hit, if you will. For those of you guys who have been around since the beginning, live is always the thing. Live is the goal, to be live all the time. But we grew very quickly with these quick hits, very, very quickly. So that's something to think about too. Anyway, awesome talking hockey with you. I will see you guys in the comments below. Remember to follow on Facebook, not just like the page, and hit that bell to get the bell notifications on YouTube. Don't just subscribe. You got to hit that bell and get the notifications so that when we do go live, you don't miss out on the Hockey Talk Show.